Hey, rock stars, if your fab shop's overwhelmed or your supplier's missing deadlines, that's not just frustrating, it's costing you real money. That's why you call HyperFab. Based in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, and trusted across North America, they deliver custom metal fabrication for industries where precision and speed matter most. Construction, oil and gas, manufacturing, and agriculture. From fiber laser cutting and CNC bending to welding, assembly, and finishing, they do it all in-house with fast turnarounds, tight tolerances, and no handoffs. One prototype, full production, no problem. HyperFab shows up when others can't and delivers when others don't. Head to www.hyperfab.com or call Colin Harms at 1-403-308-3308. Fabrication without compromise. That's the HyperFab edge. What would you do if you sold your company and had a chance to sail off into the sunset? Most people would take the easy road, but Jim Gale isn't most people. Instead of retiring, he built a fully self-sustaining farm and dedicated his life to a mission far bigger than himself. His drive, his vision, and his relentless commitment make today's conversation one you won't want to miss.
The great Mark Cuban once said, "Business happens over years and years. Value is measured in the total upside of a business relationship, not by how much you squeezed out in any one deal." And we couldn't agree more. This is the Business Development Podcast, based in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and broadcasting to the world. You'll get expert business development advice, tips and experiences, and you'll hear interviews with business owners, CEOs, and business development reps. You'll get actionable advice on how to grow business. Brought to you by Capital Business Development, capitalbd.ca. Let's do it. Welcome to the Business Development Podcast. And now your expert host, Kelly Kennedy.
Hello, welcome to episode 290 of the Business Development Podcast. And today it is my absolute pleasure to welcome back Jim Gale. Many of you will remember Jim from episode 42, where he shared his incredible journey from founding a billion-dollar mortgage company to becoming a global advocate for sustainability and permaculture. As the founder and CEO of Food Forest Abundance, Jim is on a mission to empower individuals and communities to create their own self-sustaining ecosystems. His passion for turning backyards into edible landscapes is not just an idea. It's a movement poised to reshape the way that we think about food, health, and freedom. Since his last visit, Jim has continued to push the boundaries of what's possible, from launching groundbreaking initiatives to expanding his mission to over 54 countries. Jim's vision of creating a world of abundance is more alive than ever. Today, we're diving into the next chapter of Jim's incredible journey, his plans to scale Food Forest Abundance to new heights, and the revolutionary steps he's taking to solve some of the world's biggest challenges. If you're ready to be inspired and motivated, stay tuned. Jim Gale is here to remind us all that bold action and a clear vision can truly change the world. Jim, it's an honor to have you back.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. It's a pleasure to be here and to share with everybody listening the solution to all of it. To all of the world's biggest problems. And I'm going to boil it down to such a simple thing. In fact, it was 17 years ago when I was listening to Bill Mollison, and he said, though the problems of our world are increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And I like to say joyfully simple. So now, after about 2.5 years, we've turned this sand lot. There was nothing here but sand. And now it's a thriving food forest with about 260 different species of edible and medicinal plants all around me.
Wow. And I want to get into that, Jim. I'm sure there's a lot of people here who are tuning into this for the first time. They're meeting Jim Gale for the first time. Episode 42 was a little while ago. Why
Yeah.
don't you take us back, man? Like, give us a reintroduction. Who is Jim Gale? How did you end up on this journey?
First and foremost, I'm a father and I have four amazing daughters. And I ended up on this journey primarily because I became aware that the way we are using our resources is unsustainable, to say the least. And I'm also aware that all unsustainable systems fail. And when we're talking about the healthcare system and the global governance system and the school system and the prison system and the money system, when we're talking about the pillars of our society being unsustainable and in process of failure, I became very worried 17 years ago. And I spent 2 years. I'd sold the mortgage company, so I had time and I had money. And all I did all day long was research problems around the world. And a lot of people listening are doing that right now. They're going, what's going on? This is just insane.
Yeah.
And that's when I woke up and decided, for the sake of my kids and future grandkids, that I'm going to do everything in my power to catalyze a shift in awareness that leads to mass adoption of using our resources wisely in a way where everybody wins, even the scumbags that are poisoning the earth and promoting war over peace. They don't know it, but even they will win. So that's what I got focused on, is demonstrating the solution to all of it. And it's living in the Garden of Eden. It's living in paradise is literally the solution to all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very commendable, right? Like the more that I kind of go down this path and learn more about who is Jim Gale and what are you aiming to do, it's like it's so much more than a business. I know when I initially kind of met you the first time, I'm thinking, okay, like, he wants to promote, people to grow gardens in their backyard and he wants to do this on a mass scale and he has a company that helps them do it. But like there's no way to really achieve your vision on your own. There's like no way that Food Forest Abundance as a company could impact or make the impact that you want to if it was just you and your company. You really need entire countries to get on board with this. This isn't small. This isn't like a town here and a city there. It's like we really need entire countries to get behind your vision.
Oh, I love how you think. I met with Bobby Kennedy 14 months ago. And when I met with him, I said, Bobby, what I'm going to share with you now is not only will this campaign, I created a campaign strategy. I was sitting in the food forest in meditation. That's where most of my ideas come. And this campaign strategy came to me. And my mom grew up telling me about the Kennedys, and she was part of the conspiracy of the JFK and all these things. So there was kind of this romantic idea of helping Bobby Kennedy be elected president. Now, here's the thing. I do not believe in government at all. Government is the problem, historically speaking. I'm also aware that the resources that the government has are in the trillions. And I'm also aware that with a fraction of those resources, in 1 year, we could create a foundation of peace and health and wealth and abundance all over the world. So with that in mind, I created a campaign strategy. And I said, Bobby, the campaign strategy that I'm going to lay out for you now will not only win you the presidency, but your campaign done this way will change the world in the next year. And he got big eyes and he looked at me and he goes, let's see it. Right. So we were sitting down on the couch, just him and I laid out 4 documents. And the first document was the claim. And there was a picture of Bobby Kennedy on this document, and he was at a school. It was an AI generated picture.
Yeah.
And Bobby was surrounded by kids at a school. And the claim was, we are going to take the poisons out of the school lunches and school land, and the children will heal. And I love this. He got so excited. And then it described the truth of the matter. The truth is that the schools that are currently doing this, the children are healthier and happier by spending part of the day tending to crops and tending to the garden and stewardship of the land. So that was the first campaign stop that I suggested. I said, go to a school, surround yourself with kids. Several months later, I see him with a shovel surrounded by kids at school. It was beautiful. The second document, and I'm kind of giving you the high picture, the high pattern, and then we can boil down into the details, was a picture, because I had 4 different candidates on this slide deck. The second picture was a picture of Donald Trump at the prisons. And he picks up the picture. He goes, that's not me. And I said, well, it could be. and he looked at me funny. It was really great. And it was Donald Trump saying, I am going to take the poisons out of the prisons, and the prisoners will grow some of their own food. And as a result of this, we will reduce crime by more than 50% in 4 years. Now, here's the facts of the matter. This has been done. The same as the schools. When prisoners grow their own poison-free food and learn how to be creative and productive, the recidivism falls off a cliff. Right? Anyway, and then I had 2 more slides. One was the churches, inspiring and empowering the churches to demonstrate the Garden of Eden instead of grass. The lawn, which is a tool of enslavement and of poverty. And the fourth one was the foreign army bases. Turn all the foreign army bases into food forests and start helping those communities be self-reliant and to create abundance, because abundance destroys scarcity. And scarcity is the catalyst for war, right? So it was profound. 6 months later, the Maha movement was born. And here we are.
Wow. And well, obviously, you guys just had your presidential election. Obviously, it wasn't RFK, but it was Trump. Although I believe RFK did get appointed to a pretty prestigious position, didn't he?
He sure did. And everybody loves the Maha movement. Now, we just must follow Dr. Martin Luther King's advice. He said, those who love peace must learn to organize as effectively as those who love war. So sitting in meditation and contemplation, what does that mean? That means when we integrate the schools and the churches and the prisons and the pillars of our society to take the poisons out and use our resources wisely, we solve mass extinction and deforestation and tyranny and cancer, all of it.
Jim, talk to me about the poisons. You refer to the poisons a lot. Can you maybe get deep as to what you're talking about?
I sure can. So there's one that everybody's heard of, most everybody anyway. It's called Roundup, glyphosate, right? And man, this stuff, these guys, Monsanto and now purchased by Bayer, they've already paid over $11 billion in criminal fines. The product is illegal to spread on the land in Russia and most of Europe and most of the world. And the lawyers in these class action lawsuits, and by the way, there's another one going on right now for $17 billion. And the lawyers will write the checks when they lose these big lawsuits with a stipulation, as long as they can keep their poisons on the shelves at Home Depot and Walmart and all of these stores that sell death instead of life. So I'm talking about those poisons. By the way, there is a solution to those as well.
Okay. So like literally the Roundup that we use to kill weeds on our front lawns is what you're kind of discussing, correct?
It's definitely one of the main ones. It's the most distributed one. And while the price of many other fertilizers has gone up, doubled and tripled, the price of the ultimate poison that's killing a big part of our soil and our world is going down, because it's subsidized by this evil system.
That's really interesting because, whether I'm good or bad, whatever, I have killed my lawn with Roundup. I don't know what side I fit on here, Jim.
We learn.
But you're absolutely right. I think the last time that I went to go and buy dirt and like fertilizer was actually quite expensive. Mind you, the Canadian dollar has been getting hammered, so it's been expensive for a while. But you're absolutely right. To get my weed killer, I don't think I paid much more than about $20. You're absolutely correct.
Yep.
Wow.
It's amazing. And it's so concentrated. And, most of the farmers around the United States and North America and around the world, this stuff is subsidized and they have government programs to buy food and stuff. Every time the government gets involved and starts subsidizing something, they create a glitch in the economy. They take away the free market. And worse than that, even, they're killing the very foundation of life, and that is our soil.
Yeah. Yeah. What happens to the soil when we're constantly using fertilizers?
They kill it. The soil, a lot of people see soil as dirt. They just see black stuff that they don't want. Even the word dirt is a scam, right? You go to the hospitals, there's no dirt, but yet it's one of the most dangerous places in the world is inside a hospital. Whereas rolling in dirt that doesn't have glyphosate is literally the answer to a lot of health risks, right? People that take care of bees and people that dig their hands in healthy dirt, they're the healthiest people, right? So we say dirt is bad. Well, dirt is really one of the cleanest things around if you think of it from a health perspective.
That's really interesting. Man, like even since the last time we talked, the cost of living in Canada, and I can only speak to Canada where I'm at, but the cost of living in Canada is just getting absolutely astronomical. The pay for people isn't changing. You talk about the insustainability of a system, and I would say like we're definitely seeing the system hitting big cracks, right? Big cracks, at least here in Canada, we're seeing that. Where like the cost of groceries, the cost of everything is going through the roof. The pay for people isn't changing. If not, a lot of people are losing their jobs. Not even their pay isn't going up. They're literally losing their jobs.
Yep.
And I definitely see kind of where you're coming from and where like, maybe an update to the system or more self-sustainability starts to become important. Talk to me about the food forest idea. How did you come up with this to be the solution? You're like, hey, if people just grew their own food, life would be great.
So I didn't come up with it. Almost none of this stuff, I didn't really come up with any of it. I just sit and meditate and ask, how can we take what's already there and how can we bring this to the world? What makes sense? And so the permaculture means permanent agriculture or permanent culture. And it's a sustainable agricultural design science that lays out the ethics, which are so simple. The ethics are earth care, people care, and reinvesting our surplus to earth care and people care. And the principles, the 12 principles, can guide any family, any business. They're just incredible. So what I did is I studied people who were doing it. And then I kept asking new questions. How can I do it better? Which is how I got to be sitting here. In fact, to tell you about our commitment, we are living in a community where we have 10 homes. We are 100% off grid. We produce all of the food, water, and energy needs on site. And we did not ask for permission. We did not ask the government for permits to build our houses. And about 14 months ago, we were a year in at this point since we declared our freedom. And 14 months ago, I got a call from my partner. He said, Jim, there's a government official here with a badge and a clipboard, and he's looking to see building permits for your house. And I had a wave of adrenaline run through me, kind of like fear. And I took a deep breath and I walked over to the guy and I turned on my phone. And I have been planning for this moment for a year by that point. And I walked up to him and I expected him to be a government kind of a bully, right? So I walked up and I said, my name is Jim Gale and I'm recording this conversation. And I said, hi, because I'm a really friendly guy. I said, hi, my name is Jim Gale. And I said, what's your name? He said, my name is Alexi. I said, well, it's nice to meet you, Alexi, but how did you get permission to come on my land? It's posted, implied consent is not granted. It's both illegal and unlawful for you to be here without my permission. And instead of being a jerk about it, he said, oh, I'm so sorry. The gate was open. So I just thought I'd come in, but I will leave if you want me to. And at that moment, it disarmed me. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, maybe that's a good idea. But before you leave, I would like to show you something. So I walked with him to this area right over here. And we were standing in the food forest. And I shared with him, it's my job, it's my duty for our posterity, for our kids and grandkids, and for this world to be the caretaker and the protector and the steward of this land. It's my duty to protect this land because what your government, the agency that you represent, will allow me to do is kill everything. You will even subsidize the use of poisons on this land. And as proof of that, you can look at every community, every HOA community that you've permitted up and down the road here. You go walking through these communities, there's no butterflies, there's no birds, there's no bees. They are biological death zones. I said, so you have lost, the government has lost its moral authority, and you can no longer tell me what to do. Instead, I would like to invite you to do what we're doing. We're here to serve our community. And if that means collaborating with you and showing you how to do better, that's what we're here to do. And guess what, my friend? He got a tear in his eye and he said, I will never bother you again.
Wow. Wow. What a story. And has anybody came to your property since that time?
14 months in, 500 podcasts later, not one person has come here with the threat of force and violence. Because
Wow.
if they do, we will turn that into, well, what do you do with shit? It's manure, right? You compost it. So we will put a light of truth on it. We will shine the light on it, which is the camera here. And we've got cameras up in case they just show up. And we will tell the story and we will invite them to tell their side of the story. Well, guess what? They know they'll get their asses kicked, so they're not bothering us.
Interesting. Why do you think it's been so challenging to spread the food forest message? I think many of us, me included, I'm just as guilty for this as everyone else. I don't have a garden in my backyard. Although my fiance, she loves gardening. I'm sure we'll have one soon. We just moved, so very likely.
Love it.
Like I said, I'm just as guilty for this. I've grown up in cities. You couldn't find a garden if you looked hard.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Why do you think we've gone that path? Why do you think we've stopped gardening? Why don't we have food forests in our backyards? And then the other side of it, why is it like pulling teeth to convince people to do so?
Kelly, it's the biggest fundamental deception of all time. I believe, and here's the thing, I might be wrong about this, but I kind of look at this life as a divine game in the mind of God somehow. And again, I could be wrong. I'm not preaching. I'm just saying that's how I view this life situation. And I believe that back a long time ago, that there was a deception that somehow created a psychological operation where we forgot who we are, right? We forgot that we are the stewards and the caretakers of this land. We forgot that you hear about Tesla's free energy system, right?
I haven't.
A lot of people are talking about free energy nowadays. I'm going to show you a free energy system that I've never had anybody deny, right? So I'm standing here. There's a cherry tree right here and a mulberry tree here. What do humans run on? We operate on calories, right?
Yes.
And what provides calories? All wealth, all energy is derived from nature, right? So right here, this mulberry might be 5 calories or whatever, 10 calories.
Sure.
I don't know how many calories, but that tree right there is literally a free energy device that will create exponential free energy for people, for the microbiome in the soil, and for birds. And if we walked away from this free energy device right now and we didn't do anything else, this food forest around me would turn into a jungle of food over time, and it would literally span hundreds of miles. And people say, how is that possible? A bird is going to come in here and it's going to eat a mulberry. It's going to fly on the other side of the lake over here. It's going to poop. And now there's going to be a new mulberry tree, and so on and so on. So the amount of destruction, and I call it evil for lack of a better word, there's live So one system is live. It creates more life. And then the other system is evil. It creates less life. It's like the big story of good and evil. And we've been conned.
It's really interesting though, because I think about this and I think about what you're trying to do. And it's like, obviously, like we would all do better if we had more food in our backyard or more big trees or more fruit bushes, right? Like
Yeah.
to me, it seems so clear. But I'll tell you what, Jim, before I met you, I never once even thought about it. It never once even crossed my mind that might be a beneficial thing. And you're absolutely right. Like maybe on a certain level, we have all just been like completely brainwashed, but like, is that kind of what you're up against with regards to it's just not something we're even thinking about?
Buddy, I have been on so many podcasts where, in some pretty big ones, where at the end, a week later, they said it was the most censored podcast that they've ever put out.
Wow.
I've just tried 5, 6 times in the last week. People have sent me messages saying, Jim, I tried to share your website and they deleted my comments saying it was against community guidelines.
Wow.
And so, yes, there is a coordinated effort to suppress this because this is the idea. So Victor Hugo was kind of an abolitionist a couple hundred years ago. And he said there's one thing stronger than all of the armies of the world, and that is an idea whose time has come. Nature, God's design, enlightenment, that is the idea that is spreading exponentially around the world right now as we experience the Great Awakening.
Yeah, I definitely see a big shift happening. Absolutely. I think you see it like especially here in Canada, definitely seeing a lot of shift here, a lot of shift in perception. Our current government is not exactly favored in any way, shape, or form at the moment. Their time is
Good.
likely changing one way or another. Yours has done the same. There's definitely shifts happening. And I think there's a lot of fear too, right? Like the world is a mess right now. There's no question. I know, like for me with my family, I think we're afraid of war. We're afraid of a lot of things that could be coming down the pipe that we don't have any control over, unfortunately. So I always try to advocate on this show. This is a very positive show. We try to stay as positive as possible, but the reality is there's times, right, especially times like right now where the world is a mess. And I think we do have to start thinking about what would you do if you didn't have access to the grocery store? What would you do if the power turned off for a week, a month, a year, heaven forbid? But these are all things we don't really think about, but could literally happen at any time.
You're so right. And this is exactly what we are preparing for, but not out of fear, out of the joy of stewardship. Right? I am called here every day, multiple times a day. Whenever I have a moment, I come walking out here and I just walk around. There's butterflies and there's all this stuff. It's kind of a cloudy and cool day today, which we love here in Florida once in a while. And it's the most energy giving system that you can imagine. And by the way, we like to talk about the big picture and how we organize to change the world. But we also like to get into the fine details to show people that this is happening. So right now, we are creating a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. It's like a community cooperative, right? We're turning about 4 acres of land that's just to my north, along with this 1.5 acres of food forest, into a propagation system. And we're inviting 40 families to be served by this food production system. We have cows and chickens and ducks and turkeys and bees and 7 species of fish, along with 260 species of this food forest. And so we have a lot of diversity. And here's where this gets incredibly exciting. We created a business model, which, by the way, everything we do is open source. So if anybody out there wants to copy this model, you can do it on your own, or we would love to help you. So it's an invitation for assistance, but you can also just take it and run with it. So here's the model. 40 families paying $350 per month each. And as a return on that $350 investment, we are going to do 4 classes a week where we're going to have a professional chef who's part of our team come in and teach people how to go out into the land and how to create an incredible meal by going out into the food forest and using what we've got.
Wow.
Also, we're going to create nurseries, and we're going to have 40 plots where we're going to propagate dozens of different plants like mulberry and grapes and passion fruit and hog plum and all these from our food forest. And we're going to then build them up for a year and then bring them to their house so they can have their own food forest.
Wow. Wow.
That is worth tens of thousands by itself.
Easily. Yeah.
Then we're going to also have a massive surplus of food. So they're going to get daily food. They're going to get daily medicine, which is insurance and health and food security, plus the education to become completely free and self-reliant themselves. Then after 12 months or maybe 18 months, then their food forest becomes a nursery that can serve their family and their community.
Wow. Wow. Dude, that's so commendable. I got to tell you, and like, it's ridiculous. Me and Shelby, we were trying to figure out a while ago, we're a big family. We're a 5-person family at the end of the day. 6-person, actually. Yeah, it's crazy. But anyways, point is that ultimately we're probably spending somewhere in the neighborhood of $2,000 to $3,000 a month in our household alone, simply buying groceries, lunch supplies. And I know I can already hear a whole bunch of people being like, yeah, me too. It's getting ridiculous. Like the cost of groceries has gone up like 40% since COVID, if not more. It's bonkers, man. It's the cost of food is bonkers, and we don't have a lot of choices if we don't already have, an abundance of food somewhere.
Yep. You get 6 chickens, right? 6 chickens will change a family's life. And they did this in some country in Europe. Joel Salatin tells this story so beautifully. But the mayor, it was a small town. I think it was 2,000 families. And they said, we will buy every family here 2 chickens. And within like a year, the waste in the landfill in that community went down by, it was like 40 or 60%. And everything changed within the community. So if you've got a tenth of an acre, if you've got even 300 square feet on the ground, you get 2, 3, 4, 5. In your case, with that many, kids, I'd get 4. Start with 4 chickens when you get to your next place, and then just the chickens. And then you put some crops around there, and you use your food scraps to feed the chickens, and you add a little bit extra. Now you've got 4 eggs a day, which organic, poison-free eggs. It's probably $12 a dozen where you are.
Yeah. Probably, yeah. Not yet. It's at least 10. It's at least $10. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
It is crazy. It is kind of crazy, right? When you really think about it, it is crazy. And there's people listening right now who are like, Kelly, this isn't your typical show. And they're absolutely right. This is not my typical show. This is Jim Gale's show. But the reason that I love talking with you, Jim, first off, you believed in me in the beginning of this show. And so, for me, this is so much paying it back to you. And I appreciate what you're doing. And I love what you're doing. And the other side of this is, at the end of the day, dude, you've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. You sold your business. You'd created a $1 billion, real estate business. You sold it. Dude, you could have just been done. You could have just been like, screw this. I'm going to go live high on my hog. I'm going to go buy a mansion somewhere up in the Hollywood Hills and all good, right? But you didn't. You went on essentially a passion project. Sometimes I wonder and I question you a little bit on this because it's like, I don't know. Would I have done the same thing? I don't know because I've never been in that position. But like, you could have just retired and lived happily ever after, forever. And yet you chose this path. And I want to talk to you about that because we have a lot of young entrepreneurs listening who are probably imagine, hey, if I had millions of dollars, what would I do with my life? And in their mind, maybe they would go live on a beach. Maybe they would buy the house they want, they would do whatever they want. But like, as someone who's actually done it, what happens? Do you just get bored?
So a couple of things happened. One, I intended to. I wrote my goals when I was like 29, traveling, backpacking through Africa and a bunch of other places. And I wrote that I wanted to be retired in 5 years with $3 million. First of all, I had no concept of money. My dad was a pipe fitter. My mom was, stay-at-home mom turned realtor. And so I didn't have a financial blueprint. So I intended to retire and just have fun. And then I bought a boat. I bought a 42-foot Carver motor yacht as soon as I sold the company. And I lived on the ocean for a year and I was bored silly. And then I found Costa Rica and I got so passionate about the jungle and about the life there. But then when I learned, when I red pilled, when I learned that the world is controlled by wicked, I then got into a scarcity mode and I said, holy shit, this is not good. We got to do something about it. And based on what I had learned, Napoleon Hill wrote the book Think and Grow Rich. I know you know that one.
You bet.
It's one of my all-time favorites. He also wrote Outwitting the Devil, which he couldn't release at the time because of the times itself. But anyway, his book, Think and Grow Rich, he deducted, after studying the most successful people in history, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. And I sat with that. And what does that mean? And what it means is there's no limits to what's possible. So knowing that, knowing the problem and knowing the solution, I have no other logical choice but to do everything in my power to catalyze a shift in awareness that leads to mass adoption. And the way to do that, you alluded to earlier, it's by collaborating. It's by sharing the message. And most importantly, it's by demonstrating the truth of the matter.
I have to ask, how in the world did you get a meeting with RFK in the middle of a presidential campaign?
Man, there are so many things happening now that I've learned. I am not an organizer. I basically focus on presence. I focus on being here now and being guided by source, by what I call God. I grew up in Minnesota, so I use the word God. If somebody grew up on the other side of the world and they use a different word, good for them, right?
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I simply take breaths whenever I feel myself contracted, and I just say, guide me. And I get teary right now. I was just thinking about it. So when I was meditating on this campaign strategy, it all downloaded at once. And then I started writing it out and I started calling friends. And then I had this friend McKinley who got it. He got it. He's like, I get this. So he called his friend who was kind of a graphic person, Kelly, and her name is Kelly. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, I've got these documents in my hand.
Yeah.
And then we started reaching out to our broader network and saying, we gotta meet Bobby and share this with him. Next thing you know, a month later, I was in Georgia and we shared a stage. I was one of the speakers at this event, and we're all of a sudden we're in a back room. And I thought this was very interesting. I didn't get searched. I didn't go through any metal. I simply walked in, shook hands, and sat down with the guy who was running for president, one of the most well-known names in the political world. And that was that. When we open ourselves up to what's possible and we let source guide us, anything is possible.
Wow. I was immediately like, wow, how did you do that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people who would be like, okay, that's the $1 million secret here. How the heck do you meet with a presidential candidate in the middle of a campaign? Because that to me just seemed unbelievable. But dude, that picture that you got with him, one day that's going to be in a magazine somewhere chatting about the history books.
Yeah. I just get the chills even thinking about it. And especially that 6 months later, he came out with the Maha campaign. And what he's talked about so far is kind of a high level pattern.
Yeah.
What I am hopeful, but not counting on, right, is that he uses all the resources which will be at his disposal come January to implement the integration of the schools, the prisons, the churches, and so on. And why I say I don't count on, because it's not up to the government to save us. It's not up to the government.
Mm-hmm.
It's up to us. Mass adoption of us as individuals being the change. So Bucky Fuller, another one of my teachers, said you cannot change things by fighting the existing reality. Instead, create a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And this isn't a new model, by the way. This is the oldest model in the book. It's like the Garden of Eden model. So anyway, that's what we're doing.
Well, I always say, man, even in business development at this point, we got to go back to go forward. We got to get away from the AI. We got to pick up our cell phones again. We got to get in front of people again. So, you know what? There's something to be said about the old way that just works, isn't it?
Yes, the old ways. Nature is the foundation. Once we have a foundation of health and wellness and abundance everywhere, right? And I'm talking about starting in the places where the most suffering, right? The ghettos, the prisons, and the schools, and the opportunity zones, right? Start where people are the most, let's look at it in terms of accounting, right? In the most like non-emotional, most logical way. The places like the prisons and the ghettos, they are a liability on the balance sheet of humanity, right? They are a debt. They are a place of suffering and a place where we have to spend our resources and we're not doing very well. When we create these systems in the schools and the ghettos and the prisons, we lift up and we transform the liabilities into assets. We transform the money drains into wealth production systems.
Yeah.
And it goes exponential like that. If all Bobby Kennedy did with his Maha is reached out to the Board of Education, the school system, and said, we are going to immediately stop all poisons. We are going to integrate the schools with the local farmers who grow poison-free food. And then we're going to bring them in to teach the kids how to grow their own food on the edges of the schoolyards and wherever makes sense. That one thing would change the world.
Wow. Man, one of the things that I admire about you is that you don't just set a vision. You set like an entire cultural change and then somehow are able to stay positive. You know, I mean, people look at me and they say, Kelly, you're so positive all the time. You're always like so upbeat and I love listening to you. But then I see someone like you and I'm like, my gosh, like Jim's at a whole nother level. And
practice.
And one of the things that I kind of got to ask you is, how do you not get like depressed with the scope of your vision? And I mean that in like the kindest way, because it is so big. It is so big that to see movement, it's microscopic movement. It's not like giant leaps.
Yeah, right? So the bottom line is presence is the key to everything. Being here now, practicing, and I went through the breath classes and the meditation classes, and I'm constantly listening to teachers and being here now, feeling like as soon as I took that breath, I could feel the wind. I could feel the chilly air. I could hear the crows. I could sense things that I could not sense before, right? So being present, being in the now is the key to everything. It's the answer to depression and anxiety and stress and fear and all of it. The other thing is there's a frequency to love and there's a frequency to hate, right? There's a frequency to pride and there's a frequency to joy. And there's a frequency to fear and there's a frequency to faith. And when we can follow Tesla's advice, he said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. But there's one word that is misplaced in that sentiment. It's the word think. Don't think at all. If you want to experience the secrets of the universe, of God, feel the energy, the frequency, the vibration that's here now everywhere. And then once we get into that feeling, because feeling is the gateway to transformation. We can't think our way to transformation. We have to feel our way to transformation. And the now is the only time to do that.
My gosh, I think I struggle to be present. I'm not even gonna lie, dude.
That's the ultimate struggle.
Lie. I think at times I'm always thinking, what's next? I do think that I'm a thinker. I'm stuck in my own head a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's for sure. That is humanity's suffering. Until it's not, it represents the biggest opportunity in the history of humanity and the reason that we're here, I believe, that's from my perspective. I think we're here to overcome the illusion of separation from the divine, right? That's the ego, this illusion that we're not part of this glorious,
Yeah.
amazing system. And when we get over that ultimate foundation of ignorance and we start collaborating, connecting, and stewarding again, it's just absolutely mind boggling what happens.
I think as humanity, it's so easy to forget that we're just another creature in a list of millions, if not billions, of creatures, right? Like
Yeah.
we do such a great job of putting ourselves at the center of the universe, don't we? And you
Yeah.
know what? I'm just as guilty for that as 99.999% of us. I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about the ladybugs or the bees because typically I have kids to feed, I have a business to run, and I have a podcast to produce, right? So
Yeah.
for me, I spend so much time there. But like you're right, like at a certain level, it is a bit of an ignorance to think that we are that different from, a chimpanzee or a tree, really, at the end of the day.
Well, we are in the bigger sense, our awareness, we have the potential for infinite awareness and connection, where I am not aware that those other things that you mentioned do, right? It's just different
Sure.
levels. I think that we're here for a specific reason, is to overcome this and to transform what's happening. And anyway, that gets very detailed
Yes.
and nuanced, but the simplicity of it is the power of now. Eckhart Tolle has a great book called The Power of Now. I listened to that for 5 years in a row instead of music on the radio every time I was in the car. It's powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk to me. We're right now. Obviously, what's kind of funny is when people are listening to the show, it's literally a year from now. So they're listening in the future, which is fun. But talk to me. What do the next 5 years, 10 years of food forest abundance look like? What's your vision? If you were to look out into, let's call it 2035, what does 2035 look like?
In the next 7 years, there will be peace on earth. The wars will be over. In fact, I think it's going to happen a lot. I feel that it's going to happen a lot faster than that. I feel that it's happening a lot faster than that. But I'd say on the long run, 7 years where people will become aware how simple and logical and easy it is to create abundance, and then sharing abundance becomes the most joyful thing we could ever do. In fact, people often say to me, Jim, you've got food security here. I said, we don't have food security until all of our neighbors' kids have food
Mhm.
security. We don't have food security until the people of Israel and Palestine and all of the world have food security, because food security is when everybody eats. And I don't believe in this idea of a free lunch unless it's done nature's way. In other words, if the government steals from somebody over here by threat of force and violence and gives to somebody over here, that's thievery, that's wicked, it's evil, and it has led to the system that we have now. Instead, we invite, inspire, and empower the individuals to plant seeds. And then we share our surplus. And by sharing, by service and stewardship and sharing, we create a culture again of sharing. Like a lot of the indigenous cultures around the world they're just like, I'm just like a rookie. They're like, you silly guy, we've been doing this forever.
Yeah.
Of course, that's the way to do
Yeah.
it. But we've gotten so far away from that in our culture.
Well, it's interesting, and I like the way that you kind of explained that you don't have food abundance or abundance in general unless your neighbor does. And I kind of like that from the standpoint of, let's imagine that we were in an emergency scenario and you're the only house on the block with heat and power and food. Are you safe? No. From that standpoint, it actually makes a lot of sense, because it's like, how could you ever have full abundance if your neighbor also isn't okay with where they're at?
Exactly. And that's why we're spending so much time now. In the last 2 months, I have basically changed my focus from out there to the global transformation, now that that's already in process and everything's happening, to the local transformation. I don't know if you can hear me, but we've got tractors in the background and stuff. And we're putting in this CSA model to scale rapidly here. And the pastor of the biggest church in our area, he was here a couple of weeks ago, just built me an amazing bench. And he is now bringing this to his church members, his parish. which is thousands of people. And he's doing it very strategically. He's talking about abundance in his sermons. And now we're going to set it up where probably in January, we're going to go in and we're going to bring sweet potato slips and all these different easily propagatable plants. And in fact, right here, these are sweet potatoes, right? The leaves are edible, the stems are edible, of course, the potatoes, and they grow like weeds. So we're going to go to this church and we're going to distribute all of this food. And then we also went to the local school and we built a food forest at the school, right? I showed up at the sheriff's office about 2 months ago with 2 5-gallon buckets of sweet potato starch, knocking on the sheriff's door. Hey, I want to show you something. I've got if you want security in our town, then create a foundation of food where everybody eats and we will have security in our town.
Wow. Jim, that's amazing. I appreciate your time today. We're getting to the end of our show and there's been a lot of lessons here, not just in life, but for business, for entrepreneurs, you name it. You're talking to people in over 145 countries around the world, Jim. And I know the whole goal here is to really spread your message and your word. And so I hope that we're able to do that for you today. Talk to me a little bit about Food Forest Abundance. Introduce the world to what it is you do and what services that you're providing.
I love it. So Food Forest Abundance is now operated by Matthew Britt, who I know you've chatted with, and yep. Alan Campbell, and a bunch of other amazing people. They've got Doug Crouch and Eleanor, and all these amazing permaculture designers have come together. I have given up all my equity and all the different things that I have going. We have TV shows and movies and books. In fact, we just published a book called Natural Intelligence, the Technology of Peace. And so bottom line is Food Forest Abundance is an entity that designs and installs food forests around the world. And we have food forest designers, we have food forest cooperative partners, and then we have a product called a Freedom Farm Academy. So if anybody out there listening has an acre or more, and you would like to turn your homestead into a completely off-grid food, water, and energy producing self-reliant homestead, we can help you do that. And then we can create a network, or we are creating a network of these independent demonstration centers that have multiple layers of value and profit centers and, of course, abundance.
Amazing. And Jim, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
They can find me through foodforestabundance.com, or they can also go to galtzlanding.farm. And that's our off-grid homestead. We have Airbnbs so people can come visit. It's GALTS landing.farm.
Perfect. I will make sure that the links are up for both your book and Galt's Landing and Food Forest Abundance. I'll make sure we get it all out there for you.
Awesome,
Jim,
buddy.
It was an honor to see you again. First off, dude, thank you so much for believing in this show in the very beginning. We wouldn't be where we're at today without incredible guests like you. And thank you for having such bold vision, and inspiring others to have big vision, right? Sometimes it's hard to have a big vision unless you see somebody with a really big vision. And I think that's really what you're doing here today, is you're really inspiring people to dream big.
That's my goal. That's my intention. Thank you, brother. It's a wonderful show. I love you. And everybody listening, let's change the world one seed at a time.
One seed at a time. Until next time, we've been chatting with Jim Gale of Food Forest Abundance. It's been a pleasure, guys.
Thanks.
We'll catch you on the flip side.
This has been the Business Development Podcast with Kelly Kennedy. Kelly has 15 years in sales and business development experience within the Alberta oil and gas industry and founded his own business development firm in 2020. His passion and his specialization is in customer relationship generation and business development. The show is brought to you by Capital Business Development, your business development specialists. For more, we invite you to the website at www.capitalbd.ca. See you next time on the Business Development Podcast.
Hey, rock stars, if your fab shop's overwhelmed or your supplier's missing deadlines, that's not just frustrating, it's costing you real money. That's why you call Hyperfab. Based in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, and trusted across North America, they deliver custom metal fabrication for industries where precision and speed matter most. Construction, oil and gas, manufacturing, and agriculture. From fiber laser cutting and CNC bending to welding, assembly, and finishing, they do it all in-house with fast turnarounds, tight tolerances, and no handoffs. One prototype, full production, no problem. Hyperfab shows up when others can't and delivers when others don't. Head to www.hyperfab.com or call Colin Harms at 1-403-308-3308. Fabrication without compromise. That's the Hyperfab edge.